Thank you for that very warm welcome on a warm day. Am I on?
You are on.
I deeply appreciate how many people have come out today to demonstrate in favor of freedom. You know my name, you've heard my credentials. I don't have to repeat them. Let me tell you what they really mean. I'm putting my career on the line here. Okay, there we go. Now you can hear me. I'll repeat. Thank you all for coming. Your presence means so much to me that we're fellow travelers in this journey towards recapturing our fundamental freedoms in this country, which COVID has unfortunately so seriously undermined. You heard my credentials. I'm not going to repeat them, except to say I'm putting my career on the line here, and I'm very, very proud of my career. I don't like to brag. My degrees are still in a tube. I've never framed them. I want to tell you what they really mean. What does it mean to be the CEO of a laboratory? It means that every single result you're getting from your GP passes through hands like mine to make sure they're accurate. That's what that means. What does it mean setting the annual exam for pathology? It means that I'm making sure that the residents coming out of the tube are safe to read your breast biopsies. That's what that means. I've been a laboratory inspector for the very college that's got its teeth into me. Do you think that's an important role, to make sure that every other laboratory is doing the right job? Yes, I'm very proud of my CV. And any attempt by Snopes and AP to discredit me is despicable. I loathe those little decomposing maggots. I know who I am. I know who I am. And I like to know who the fuck they are in a dark alley. Yes, I'm pissed.
You should be.
Because you're the laboratory rats. You're the experiment. Never before in medical history has an uncontrolled clinical trial of this scale ever been undertaken with no evidence of safety whatsoever in the traditional sense of the word. So I got a number of messages for you before I castrate myself. I would remember that. This unprecedented horror show, the worst in medical history. As you've heard, I am viscerally outraged at how unnecessary this grotesque tragedy has been, and yet somehow manages to continue. It's insanity cubed. The first message is this: believe nothing you're being told. It's all a pack of lies from start to finish. Pure, unopposed propaganda. Plain and simple. This is nothing more than a bad seasonal flu with certain minor exceptions. And nothing was needed except good old common sense and early treatment with drugs known to be totally safe. The lies are best exemplified by 3 4-letter words, and I'm not going to use the one that begins with F, okay? Safe, fact, and case. Safe? Are you kidding me? This is from their own propaganda, and I'll read it to you. If this isn't something that's been infinitely wordsmithed by lawyers because of risk of prosecution, tell me. It says, and I quote, you've seen it on billboards, all approved vaccines are researched until proven safe. If that's not the most grotesque lie that they're telling you, in medicine, we do not pronounce a vaccine safe until it's been put through 5 to 7 years of clinical trials. For the very simple reason, we don't know what we don't know, for Christ's sake. This has been wordsmithed by lawyers. It's despicable. They are lying to you. This vaccine is not safe. Underlined in neon.
Yes, I agree completely.
The next four-letter word, fact. If that's not Orwellian. Everyone is saying that what the government and their minions, the ones that kiss the ring, they're saying that what they're saying is based on fact. That is the most Orwellian distortion of the English language. It is not fact. It is hearsay. They are distorting everything to make you scared and complicit and obey. The next four-letter word, case. You've heard it repeatedly. Case. You know what we call a case in medicine? Someone who's sick in front of us. They've got a fever. They've got pain. They're sick. I tell you what's sick about this. They're sick. These are not cases. These are false positive PCR results, and we'll come to that. The second message is this, that more than anything, this is a pandemic of intentionally manipulated fear. Totally unnecessary and driven by two major, wait for it, two major factors. The notorious PCR test and the viciously effective silencing of any counter-narrative. You're being kept ignorant intentionally. How can you form an opinion if you're being denied the facts and simply being fed the hearsay? The PCR test, I'm talking as a pathologist now. I know a bit about PCR. The PCR test creates over 95% false positives in perfectly well people. And it's that drives the graphs in the morning paper where the false positives are called cases, which are no such thing. They're as well as you lot. The second driver of fear is the brutal silencing of the truth. From the three sources that you would normally rely upon to form your own independent judgment. Politicians. We've got a rare one over here. Max. I admire his spunk. The media, the mainstream media, they're lying to you as well every single night on the television. Social media is suppressing the truth. It can only get out under alternative media. And how many people listen to that? No, you're being lied to and you're being denied the truth. And I'll include in that group physicians, particularly MDs, who by their cowardly silence have decided to put income ahead of ethics. The ethics. The ethics we physicians are supposed to hold dear. First, do no harm, and informed consent, both being trampled on by our government. Fear, in turn, has been the excuse for politicians and the unelected minions underneath them to enforce ridiculously arbitrary mandates that have no consensus for any effectiveness in the medical literature. Do I have to repeat that? No evidence for effectiveness. None, none, none. I'm talking here about masks. These diapers that you're so familiar with. The most insulting thing that's been imposed upon us to show compliance, walking around the street, in your cars, everywhere. It is outrageously ridiculous. You cannot stop it's like stopping a mosquito going through a chain link fence, for God's sake. They only exist for two reasons: to stop me from giving it to you. And guess what we did last year? We didn't do that, did we? We stayed home. We needed no testing, nothing. We looked after ourselves, and society was all the better for it. The other reason for wearing masks is to stop you giving it to me. Well, that's shown not to be the case. Asymptomatic spread does not happen. It cannot happen. It undercuts the very tenets of infectious disease transmission. It's ridiculous. It's stupid. It's medical student 101, okay? It's that mad.
Yeah.
So, they couldn't work, they haven't worked, and therefore they will not work. So my third message is simply this: read my lips and repeat after me. Nothing works! Nothing works, for God's sake! Stop these ridiculous mandates! Nothing works except effective prophylaxis with vitamin D and ivermectin. It's just politicians playing medicine. And as I said before, that's a very dangerous game. They should stick to their goddamn knitting. They dress themselves in the flag, demanding that only they can protect you from all life's risks. It can't be done. I can tell you categorically, as a pathologist, a certainty in life. Life is risky. Get used to it. Death happens. Just like you did with all the past flu epidemics. And every day when you drive your car and risk a head-on collision, you handle that risk, don't you? Governments must get used to this fact. They've got to get their heads around this. Modern medicine that I spent my entire career in, evidence-based medicine, as a teacher, as a CEO, as president of this and that, I can tell you that modern medicine is totally impotent at controlling the spread of a respiratory virus, period. We must simply accommodate to them in ways that we've done so effectively with past flu epidemics, with liberal doses of the cheapest, most effective medicine known. Common sense. Flip-flop Fauci, or as I'm now calling him, Five-Finger Fauci. With his sticky fingers are all over this from beginning to end. When his gain-of-function research escaped from that lab in Wuhan. And he's lied about it twice in Congress, with the penalty being a 5-year jail time. You shouldn't be forced to put your life or your child's life on the line by getting vaxxed just to solve a problem that he created. That is government tyranny and indescribably offensive. The experimental gene-based vaccines have never before been used in humans. As I said before, you are the lab rats of the largest uncontrolled clinical trial in the history of medicine. There are all kinds of side effects, not the least of which is death. The US VAERS system is now recording, depending on the day that they choose to correct their mistakes, between 6,000 and 12,000 deaths directly due to the vaccine. a number that's probably vastly understated given past history of vaccine introductions, and larger than all the deaths attributed to other vaccines over a 30-year period. And they're still doing it. There are blood clots occurring all over the body. Myocarditis in young males that's called minor. Excuse me? Inflammation of the heart in a young man is minor? Are you kidding me? Yeah, you might recover, but it reduces your cardiac reserve and you may have heart failure decades later directly due to that original attack.
This is very scary practice. Yes, I agree.
And what about all the fertility issues? Not being tested. The last time I checked, pregnancy takes 9 months. How can you check for fertility if the testing, the trials, so-called trials, only go on for 4 to 6 months, and by intention do not include pregnant women who are being vaccinated today? Using these vaccines in children who are virtually at zero risk from COVID can only be termed state-sanctioned child abuse. It's that bad. It really is that bad. They're not going to suffer from it, and they're being exposed to the risks of the vaccines, for which we don't know the answer, because the vaccine trials didn't continue long enough. Is anyone listening to me? Remember, too, that the best immunity is with the entire vaccine. You do not need to be vaxxed if you've had COVID. You cannot be unvaxxed. It's in you forever. So for God's sake, don't let them scare you or your children into getting vaxxed.
Yeah, that's right.
Tell them instead, repeat after me, stop the shot. Stop the shot. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger.